7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Welcome into another edition of the Vegas Squares podcast. I'm sitting here in studio. I got Token Tony on the phone. He'll be joining me. We're going to be talking about some NHL playoffs here because we've got 4 series wrapped up and 4 series getting into the nitty-gritty time. We've got Nashville and Dallas tonight, as well as Washington and Carolina, 2 series that could end tonight. Both if Dallas and Washington are to come up victorious. And then we also have 2 Game 7s on Tuesday, Boston and Toronto, which has been a very strange series. Entertaining, but strange is the word I come up with regarding...
That's a good word, I believe.
Yeah, regarding motivation and home ice in that series has been weird. And then you have Vegas and San Jose, which... has also been a very entertaining series, and this is one I believe you and I, Token, thought was going to go down to the wire.
Yeah, I thought it was going to end in 6, but I'm not too surprised that went to 7. So
yeah, I mean the 2 games so far, or 2 series that have gone to Game 7 so far, the 2 I expected: Toronto and Boston, and Vegas and San Jose. For the bracket challenge, I actually believed that Carolina would win. So obviously they've got to get this one to send it to Game 7. This series, the Washington-Carolina series, has been home team wins, but it hasn't really been the case for Nashville, Dallas, Toronto, Boston, and Vegas, San Jose. All these teams have been able to win on the other's ice, and Nashville is especially going to have to do that tonight to keep their hopes alive. I got to say, I didn't see that one coming. Nashville, I thought maybe... Dallas might get a game or 2, but yeah.
I thought Nashville would struggle and maybe go 6 or 7 games, but Nashville would prevail.
Yeah, well, they're definitely going at least 6, but they're on the wrong end of that at this point right now. So
yeah, I think it really relies on like a reading right now to try and keep the pucks out of the net.
So we're going to break down each of these games. Obviously, if you're listening on 12-Ounce Sports Radio, the Washington-Carolina game is already in play. But first we want to thank the sponsors, 12-Ounce Sports Radio, obviously, Vegas Puckline Apparel, ChaiPoker.com, and Eric on the Web Productions. All right, so let's break down the games that are Monday because we have 2 good ones in my opinion. Carolina has been no slouch in this series. Svechnikov obviously still coming back from that injury with his fight with Alex Ovechkin. I'll tell you what, though, Alex Ovechkin, if you thought he couldn't show you something new this year. We all knew he was kind of a fighter and kind of a big-body defensive presence, but he really knocked the shit out of Andrei Svechnikov, kind of putting a new skill on his resume, so to speak.
Yeah, he's got another patch for his sash as a play scout.
Yeah, there you go, another patch for the sash. So what do you make of this series? Like I said, Game 6 will be in progress right now. I will say this. I like Carolina to force Game 7, but that's all going to depend on one of your old guys, Peter Mrazek.
So I have no faith in him.
Well, he doesn't play for the Wings anymore, so you don't have to worry about that.
I know. I have no faith in him for any team. He might be able to keep it close, but I think Washington wins this one 3-2. Could be in regulation, could be in overtime. I would not be too surprised if this one goes to
a lot
extra time. So
a lot of people have believed that this series probably was going to go 4 or 5 games, but Carolina's been scrappy. They got that bunch of jerk mentality. They play like a team. I mean, not that Washington doesn't, but Washington clearly has the superior athletes. It's just Braden Holtby at times in this series has been a little matador defensively.
Yeah. Carolina's defense keeps the puck out of their zone and minimizes the attack from Washington, and it's been a great series so far.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. All right, let's talk Nashville, Dallas. This game will probably be on just a little bit later from the broadcast here.
It starts 8:30 Eastern time. So
yeah, so we've got Dallas as a favorite. It's hard. I mean, the thing is, and I said this when he was with Tampa, I mean, Ben Bishop, when he's on, is, if not the best, one of the top 2 or 3 goalies in the league, and that's obviously evidenced by the fact that he's a Vezina finalist this year. He's so big and commands so much of the net, and Pecorini's been pulled twice in this series. Is it time to turn the page? Well, I don't want to speak too much in the future. They still got a series to play and potentially more playoffs, but it just might be time to turn the page on Pecorine if you're Nashville.
I think they look somewhere else. Maybe somebody that potentially could be a backup to take his role after one more year or something, but it seems like that. I mean, he's been very streaky and towards the bad side of the streaky lately.
But, I mean, this team...
compared to what he's used to, yeah.
This team has been strong all year. They added pieces who look to be in the lineup, especially for this game, Brian Boyle and Wayne Simmons. But it just, I don't know, something about the Dallas Stars. I mean, we've talked about the Dallas Stars for the last 2 years with Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin and Ben Bishop. They just haven't been able to put it all together. This might actually be the year that they're able to do it. I kind of like if they move on in this series, especially, that's going to be a fun matchup against the Blues. Either team really is going to be a fun matchup against the Blues, but Dallas and St. Louis.
It's going to be that would be the ideal matchup for the next round with the Blues. Yeah, would be Dallas, and that one's probably going to go 7. It is Dallas against the Blues.
So, yeah, and then we've got 2 Game 7s on Tuesday. First one will be Toronto and Boston. Like I said, that series has been strange. In my personal opinion, I'll call it personal, not professional, I think Boston has only been motivated for 2 games this series. They snuck out a win, but it seems like when Toronto has that intensity, Boston just doesn't seem to either want to match it or can't match it, and it's so weird to think. I don't think that Nazem Kadri's suspension really has anything to do with it. I just don't see Boston having the get up. But I mean, this is Game 7. This could be a whole different thing. I mean, if you're a professional athlete, Game 7 is all the motivation you need.
Should be, but I mean,
that's true. Should be.
Will be though. It should be, but will be.
I mean, yeah, going to be a thing here.
Boston's mentality is going to be a key component for this game. If their head's not in the game, that's night for them. So,
yeah, who do you got in that game?
Toronto. I am taking Toronto, probably even on the reverse pipeline.
Oh wow, taking the dog even dog year. Wow. All right, cool. Well, then, just for sake, I'll take Boston. I think, like you said, I mean, this is Game 7. The mentality kind of has been questioned, especially by a lot of even their own guys. I mean, some of their radio guys, some of their TV guys have been questioning what can they do, what can Bruce Cassidy do to get into the mind of these guys, because some of these games it seems like they're just going through the motions. I mean, the Game 5 win in Boston by the Maple Leafs might have been the easiest win I've ever seen playoff hockey happen. I mean, it was 0-0 all the way down. Toronto didn't expel too much energy, and they were able to get a 3-0 victory, basically at the hands of just remaining calm and not overstretching themselves. And then, Boston turns around and continues and flips the intensity in Game 6. It's just like, you would think you would want to do that.
It was like a flip of a switch.
Yeah, so let's see which way the switch flicks for Game 7. I like Boston in this one. I think that I don't know if they're more talented. I think they're just. I think they have the better goalie, and I think
I agree with that.
And I think they have, and I think Jake DeBrusk coming along great. I think that he might be a factor in this, like he was in Game 6. I'm gonna say 3-2 Boston. I think that game's gonna be very tight, and it might even go to an overtime or 2.
I'm saying 4-2 Toronto.
Of course you are, because that's you want the puck line, but. I was
going to say 4-1, but I think Boston sleeps out nothing the whole weekend.
Fair enough. All right, and now we've got the series Game 7 that I would say probably about 5 days ago none of the Golden Knight fans expected, because on the Facebook message boards and all that shit, Vegas Golden Knight fans were like, all right, well, who do we want to see in the next series? And I'm sitting here thinking, man, you got to get through this series first. It was 3-1.
You do.
And that's the thing. I mean, I would hope that the Knights players didn't have that same mentality, but that's the thing. In hockey, I mean, especially I know it's not common, but it has happened the most times in hockey playoff history of coming back from 3-0 and actually statistically percentage, I heard this on the broadcast last night, a team coming back from 3-1 to win the series in the NHL playoffs is actually 21%. So about 1 in 5. So it's not.
Okay, I was going to guess a little higher, actually. I was going to say closer to about 30.
No, well, I will quote Dan Duva, the Vegas Golden Knights radio guy on that. He said about 21%. So basically about 1 in 5 times does a team down 3-1 come back and win the series. Now, obviously, that's 80% in favor of the Knights, but here we are. We're in Game 7. It's on San Jose's ice. And it's already, you can already see it's opened up basically both teams minus money, 105, 115, and currently at the consensus we stand, it's 110 either way. Actually, 105 at the Westgate. You would probably better off getting it there or waiting maybe till the end of the day here, see what moves. I don't know what's going to happen. I feel like if you like San Jose, you wait. If you like Vegas, you jump now. Because I feel like a lot of people in Vegas are going to be jumping on that 105, 110.
I agree, and it might move to Vegas minus 120, San Jose even, by play trap around. I believe that's probably how the line will finish.
I would be.
I
don't know if I'd be shocked, but I would be a little bit surprised if Vegas closed that big of a favorite. But again, it's because we're here, so it all depends on what people are wanting to do.
I think it really relies on the handle, and a lot of people will probably play around Vegas. So.
All right, so the over-under is back down to 5.5 after this series was starting off with 6s and 6.5. Obviously, that's maybe a knee-jerk reaction to the 2-1 double overtime last night. I mean, how do you see this over? The over's juiced at minus 130, but they've moved the line down. So they moved the line down and then juiced it. So, I mean, it's in San Jose, they get the over every time.
Yeah, that's to be expected that they moved the line down, but I'm not too surprised it's juiced that much. I would not be shocked if this one might even move up to 6.
But in a game,
I kind of lean towards
Game 7, you have a lot of timid hockey play. You don't want to make that mistake. No, that one mistake, you know.
I agree. With that being said, I would lean towards the under.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I was like, Martin Jones is playing. He's got a ton of confidence after getting pulled twice already. And, I mean, Marc-Andre Fleury's been playing well. I mean, a lot of people are slamming him for that goal. I mean, it was a little bit of a soft goal in the overtime, but looked like it was a little deflected. But, yeah, I mean, he's still playing pretty good hockey right now at this point. It's hard to say, but I would probably lean. I feel like the under is too juicy. And while I would believe the under, I think maybe if I can go to – like not William Hill, MGM has the over 5.5 at minus 115. So saving 15 cents on the dollar there by skipping the Superbook and heading over to MGM might be the better play in that spot.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm surprised
especially
it's that much of a difference.
Yeah, especially if you like the under, then obviously you're at the Westgate betting.
You're on the Westgate, yeah.
Absolutely.
Plus 110, yeah.
So, all right, well, let's talk about the series that have ended, because since the playoffs have started and we made our brackets, there's been a large dumpster fire, at least in my bracket. I know that. Both of my cup contenders are gone. And I think one of yours is gone as well.
Yeah, my cup champion's gone, but my other one relies on a Game 7.
So, yeah, I mean, I have, out of my final 4, I have one team left because I have Winnipeg. My final 4 was Winnipeg, Calgary, the Islanders, and the Lightning, and obviously we know what happened. Let's start with the Lightning because we haven't talked about it since we've done our NHL bracket podcast, and our NHL bracket challenge is on bracketchallenge.nhl.com. You can search the Vegas Squares group, and all of our brackets are there, and some of them are on some serious fire at this point. So let's start with Tampa. I mean,
some of them are just carbon dated already.
Yeah, it's true. It's been kind of rough, but let's start with Tampa. And in your opinion, I know you don't have to like think about it. Just kind of a snap decision. Is this the worst collapse of a team ever? Now, I'm talking any sport. I mean, you can take You had Detroit, who lost the conference final to the Avalanche. You had the Patriots, who went undefeated and lost to the Giants. You have some of the 2001 Yankees, who were one of the best teams on paper ever, lose to the Diamondbacks. There's so many different options to choose from, but a 62-win team that ties the NHL record to get swept out in the first round. What are is that the worst performance of a team of that elite status, in your opinion?
I would say the Yankees tops that one, but this one's very close. I'm blowing a 3-0 lead in Game 1.
Well, that was
definitely has to add to that.
Yeah, that was crazy because they got up 3-0 in the first period, and it was like, okay, everybody, Columbus, thank you for playing. Here's your parting gifts, and they blew that, and everybody was like, okay, well, it's only one game. They're going to learn from it,
yeah.
But holy crap, they just never even looked competitive. Kucherov got suspended.
I know folks made out well off the series because everybody after the first loss, the second loss, were still on Tampa Bay.
Oh yeah, the books had to make out. The thing is with the series bets, the only thing you could really bet was Columbus. The Lightning were minus 400 to win the series. So the only thing was to take the 330 for the Columbus Blue Jackets and pray they make it competitive, or pray they get ahead in the series so that you can lay off a little on the Lightning at that point. Yeah.
Well, a lot of people were on the Lightning after Game 1, which was so cheap. So.
Well, I can say I can raise my hand and call myself guilty because after Game 1, I was still on the Lightning. After Game 2, I was still on the Lightning. After Game 3, I was still on the Lightning, and I bet them the whole way. So I lost a little chunk of change. Thankfully, the Avalanche were able to help me get that back. But they've been some weird series. You look at Boston, like we talked about, Boston and Toronto tied 3-3. This really, to handicap this game and to handicap the San Jose and Golden Knights games, the series have just been ridiculous. In spots where you believe the motivation is there for either team, for all teams, it's been completely the opposite. I was at the Golden Knights game last night, and I thought the Knights came out far too timid for a team that had nothing to lose. They had a game in hand. They were up 3-2, and they came out very passive-aggressive, and they got beat. They got beat by a team who was far desperate. And I know that sounds crazy considering the Golden Knights had 60 shots on goal, but if you actually take a deep dive and watch that game, a lot of those shots were pretty easy saves for Martin Jones. Nothing in his way, no screens, no bodies. No
real good quality shots, yeah.
Yeah, there was probably 10, 15 quality shots.
In the second period was a majority of that, though.
Sure, but it just seemed like in overtime. In overtime, you should have been the most aggressive. Literally, you have nothing to lose.
Absolutely.
If you lose this game by playing timid, you go to Game 7 in San Jose. If you lose this game by playing aggressive, well, guess what? You go to Game 7 in San Jose. Now what do you do? It's crazy to think. And let me ask you a question. I posed this poll up on VegasSquares.com, or excuse me, Vegas Squares Twitter account. You can catch it at Vegas Squares. You can still vote on it until the game time starts. But if you're watching this game, you're a fan, who is under the most pressure, the Sharks or the Knights? You have the Sharks, who were the favorites going into the series. They're the team that a lot of people expect to represent, even with as wonky as the West has gone. They're the team that a lot of people expect to represent in the finals. And also you have the Knights, who were up 3-1, but they were the dog in this series, and they've allowed the favorite to come back and tie this series at 3-3. Who's under more pressure, in your opinion?
The Knights.
Okay, I didn't think you were going to say that. I got to say, I still think the pressure's on San Jose at this point.
No, I think Knights organization, with the success that they had last year, has that eagle on their back as well as that, and they were up 3-1 in the series. They can't get it done yet, and I think the pressure's on them not to blow the 3-1 series. So,
it's crazy to think, and just take a step back and look at this just from an objective point of view. I think it's crazy to think. So if the Golden Knights go into San Jose tomorrow and lose the game, and they lose the series 4-3, and the season's over for Vegas, that fans and maybe even some people in that front office will consider this season a failure. They're a second-year expansion franchise.
We make the playoffs, and it's still a failure.
I mean, you make the playoffs, get beat in the first round, and your season's a failure as a second-year expansion frame. It's just crazy. It took the Nashville Predators 6 years to make the playoffs. It took the Minnesota Wild 8 years, and I don't know about the Columbus. I didn't check on Columbus, but those are the last few expansion teams. And here we are. I mean, that's the problem. I mean, like we talked about it after last year. I mean, expectations are so high. I mean, what else can you do if you're the Knights? It's cup or bust because of last year's expectations, and you actually may have gotten better talent-wise. So it's like, how much – it's so crazy to step back and think this season could be a failure if the Knights lose this game.
I don't think it's a failure, but I think there might be a setback, and some of the bandwagon fans might drop off or go wide in their chances or whatever.
Well, it'd be great if they lowered my ticket prices. That'd be fantastic, but that ain't happening anytime soon.
I agree.
So, all right, well, let's...
sadly, I haven't been going through the game so far this year due to that and some other reasons, but...
Yeah, so, all right, well, let's move over to... We talked about Columbus and Tampa, and that was kind of an ass-kicking. They took them behind the woodshed and beat them, but... Tampa's been locked up on a playoff seed since February, and Columbus has been playing playoff hockey for the last 6 weeks. Sometimes that's almost a rust versus
hot team, yeah.
Rust versus rest, kind of thing. It's Tampa Bay's been kind of cruising, making sure their guys don't get injured, and then all of a sudden they really couldn't flip the switch. And Columbus is now a dangerous team. I mean, they've been sitting at home for a week, getting to play the winner of two teams that have been just beating each other up, Boston and Toronto. Mm-hmm. So. I mean, all right, let's take that series, a little foreshadowing. I know we're going to talk about it because those series are going to start up next week. But let's take that series. I mean, are either of these teams, do you like them? I know you have Toronto in your bracket, but now knowing what you know, I mean, you picked that bracket almost 2 weeks ago. With watching Columbus, do you think having this rest is better for Columbus, or do you think that they're able to just take on either of these teams, that whichever one advances?
I think if Boston advances, they'll have a better shot against Columbus. Toronto, their goaltender probably being up Anderson. I don't like Toronto against Columbus. I like them more against Tampa, to be honest.
Fair enough. All right, let's move down. We talked about Washington and the game tonight that's going on currently. Let's move on to the other sweep that's really not getting a lot of publicity because of what happened with Tampa. And that's Pittsburgh and the Islanders. I mean, the Islanders, a small market team, low payroll, lost John Tavares last year, or in the offseason. Everybody thought, well, they're going to take a huge step back. Well, what do? They go ahead and finish second in the Metropolitan Division, and then sweep a team that has been somewhat of a dynasty the last few years. About the last 4 years, they've won 2 cups in 4 years. And but there's a lot of talk that this team's been getting old. Their superstars are all plus 30. Sidney Crosby's still unbelievable. I don't care what age he is. But, you got Phil Kessel and
Malkin's so good, yeah.
But, I mean, Malkin and Kessel above 30 looked a little slow this year. And they traded a few of their guys that I thought might have had an impact. And Connor Sheary and guys like that I thought would have had an impact. And Matt Murray was hurt a lot this year, so... But nevertheless, I mean, they've got some interesting work in the off season to do, and the Islanders move on.
Yeah, they definitely had a great playoff opponent in the first round with Pittsburgh. I think they matched up really well. Even though I had Pittsburgh winning that one, I think the Islanders' defense really helped them on that one.
Yeah, the Islanders is the only team I have left in the Final Four, so to speak. So I can say I proudly had the Islanders upsetting, but I definitely saw Pittsburgh winning 1 or 2 games. I actually picked Islanders in 6. So
yeah, I was on Pittsburgh in that one, if I remember right.
So yeah, I mean, like I said, Pittsburgh's got a lot of soul searching to do. Their cap's pretty strapped. There's been a lot of talks that they're going to move Malkin in the offseason. I don't think they're going to get a lot back for him, considering how high that cap hit is. But, you never know. I mean, if anybody's able to, get the max value out of some of these trades the last few years, it's been the Pittsburgh Penguins. Yeah, the Islanders move on. Robin Lehner has been a revelation for them. He's a Vezina finalist as well.
Maybe they might try and get Jagger back.
Who?
Yeah, I mean, Jagger.
Oh, like you said, never mind. I thought you said something else. But yeah, I mean, I guess they could sign Yager. I guess he just played in the Czech league and had 4 goals the other day. I mean, the guy's 47 years old and still kicking it. Hey, you might as well sign him to like a 3rd-line contract.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He'd be great for that locker room too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, let's move over to the West. A couple series are in the bag. St. Louis and Winnipeg. St. Louis, another team. Crazy. I was reading a story. If you would have picked St. Louis to win the Cup on January 2nd, they were 125 to 1 to win the Cup. They were in dead last place. January 2nd. And here they are in the second round of the playoffs after beating. I understand they were the favorite. I still consider this an upset, even though they were the betting favorite. Winnipeg, just to be so non-existent at home. I mean, they lost every home game. It's just baffling to me. And Winnipeg's another team that's going to have to figure out, is Hellbuck the answer? You know, they've got so many talented players. They had 7 All-Stars this year, and you know, and again, you can't compare it to what happened at Tampa, but I feel like Winnipeg's another very big letdown. You know, again, not on the magnitude. I think if Nashville loses too, a very big letdown. But that's the beauty of playoff hockey. These teams that they're playing aren't too far behind them. But Winnipeg, another team, had the Pacific Division. Had the Central Division. You know, they were locked into a playoff for a month and a half, and the Blues were playing playoff hockey since January 3rd. I mean, it's just like, you know, how do you compensate for something like that where you've been, you know, it's the classic cliche of how do you flip the switch, and can you flip the switch against a team that's been playing hot for, you know, 3 months at this point.
Yeah, it's going to be extremely difficult for sure for them to see what they need during the off season for sure.
Yep, and then you have Calgary, who won 1 game. So we talked about this. It's the first time in NHL history that the number 1 seeds in both conferences lost in the first round, and they won a combined 1 game. That's incredible.
Yeah, that's what's more impressive about that is between the 2 teams, they won 1 game.
Yeah, and the Avalanche move on. They'll face the winner of that Sharks Knights series. Based on just season history, the Avalanche want to see the Sharks. They have a better record against they want to see the Knights. They're 3-0 against the Knights this year. And
I do believe they would rather see Vegas, but I don't think they're scared about either team, to be honest. That first line on Colorado is extremely great.
Well, they are, but I mean, you look at the rest of that team, really couldn't get anything done. So, I mean, obviously easier said than done. But whichever team advances from the Pacific 2-3 matchup, I mean, basically you're going to have to expend all your energy on that top line: Rantanen, Landeskog, and Nathan McKinnon, and then you really got a good shot if you can shut them down. Obviously, like I said, easier said than done. But it's hard to really become a Cup contender when you've only got the ability to score on 1 line. That's not a recipe for success, but it'll get you a round or 2.
Yeah, absolutely about that. I think whoever they play in the next round, Colorado will move forward, and they could be 5 or 6 games.
All right, so let's kind of wrap up. Let's kind of wrap up the talk here. We have 4 teams who are qualified, so you have to stick with those 4 teams. You've already said Toronto. You've already said Washington. Who'd you take in the night series?
In the night series, I take Vegas.
Well, I mean, like, who do you want to take in this game right now? Take your bracket out the window. Just this is new.
Yeah, San Jose.
Okay, so and then Nashville, Dallas. You're taking
Nashville.
All right, so you're going to get a second chance here to pick. Your bracket's probably pretty wiped. So you have. Let's start with Columbus and Toronto.
I have 2 conference finals teams still left.
Okay, well you can stick with them if you'd like, but we have Columbus and Toronto. Who do you see advancing in that best of 7?
Columbus.
All right, and then you have Washington v. the Islanders.
Washington.
All right, so you have Columbus, Washington. You have Colorado v. San Jose.
Yep. I have Colorado moving on in that one.
Oh, wow. And then you have Nashville v. St. Louis.
Well, go with the Blues.
Whoa, that came out of nowhere. All right, so you have CBJ, Washington, San Jose, and St. Louis. I'll make you a little prop bet. I will take the winner of Boston and Toronto. I think Boston's going to advance. So I'll take Boston.
Okay.
I think Washington's going to advance, but I think the Islanders are going to win, so I'll take the Islanders.
Okay.
I think the Knights win, and they beat Colorado, so I'll take VGK. And I think Dallas wins this series and beats the Blues, so I'll take Dallas, just to be different from every pick you have. So I'll make you a prop bet, $5. Whoever has the most Final Four teams out of what we've picked here. Since we have 4 different teams. So.
Yep. Gentlemen's agreement. Huzzah.
Huzzah. All right, let's wrap it up here. That's some NHL talk. We're going to have some more as the real series, actually come to conclusion. And then we'll be previewing the second round as well as recapping our RBC Heritage picks on Wednesday and also previewing the next tournament. Do you have the next tournament? I don't even know what the next golf tournament is. I think let's see. Let's see what Vegas Insider has, because they're usually my go-to. Golf. Future odds. The Zurich, that's right, in New Orleans. Zurich Classic, so.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, Zurich and then Wells Fargo after.
So let's wrap it up here with a thank you of the sponsors, 12 Ounce Sports Radio, ChaiPoker.com, Vegas Puckline Apparel, and Eric on the Web Productions. For Token Tony, I am Aaron. We appreciate you guys listening in. We'll catch you on Wednesday at 8 o'clock on 12 Ounce Sports Radio, where you can catch all of our podcasts on VegasSquares.com. Click the Listen Now, and then click the podcast drop-down option, and all of our podcasts are right there. Every episode that we've had since the beginning, since Token and I were bullshitting on episode 1.
Oh, yeah. How much difference a year and a half makes?
We actually recommend maybe not listening to episode 1, just for your own sanity and maybe for our own embarrassment. Just stay away from it.
It is pretty brutal. Yeah, it is pretty brutal.
Yeah, but we have fun. So, all right, again, for Token Tony, I am Aaron. We appreciate you listening. We'll catch you on the next podcast.